It kind of dawned on me as I was watching the intro that I'm going to have to probably create a new one soon because a lot of those people are no longer here. Welcome, one and all, to tonight's show. I'm not exactly wired up, not really fired up, but I guess I am ready to go. Episode 50 of BlueTruth, New York Rangers talk with myself, Brian Tart, powered by the Sportsbox Network. Like, follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thank you to those of you who have joined the live stream for watching live. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, thank you for that as well. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Maybe you will join the live stream one of these episodes. Tonight is Thursday night, February the 19th, 2026. The Rangers haven't lost a game in 2 weeks, which is by far their most successful string of the season. There's one more week to go, and my guarantee of 3 weeks without a loss comes to fruition. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Not a lot of it is good, frankly. Very little of it is good. But that's nothing new. We are going to look at where we are, how we got here, and what happens now. And what happens now probably not gonna excite too many of you, but that's nothing new. As those of you who have been around BlueTruth for 50 episodes now, going back to May of 2021, I love my day ones. You know who you are. Thank you for everything. We keep it as real as we can be on BlueTruth. So, as I've said before, when there's reason to be up, we'll be as up as anybody. When there's reason to be down, we're not going to sugarcoat it. That is not our style. And I have a lot to get off my chest tonight. It's a byproduct of, not having done one of these in a while. And that's multiplied by recent events. One thing about BlueTruth, and it's just the approach that I take, is that I don't do the lives too often. I know plenty out there that do, and I would encourage every single one of you to follow Blue Shirt Underground, Two Guys, One Cup. They're both led by great Rangers fans and better people. I've always tried not to overreact in the moment. And when I give things time to settle, water to find its level, and react accordingly, I feel the conversation is better. It's just me and how my mind is wired. I personally feel that it's a less is more, and I put more effort into less frequency. That's what works for me. So this is somewhat of an outlet for me just to get my thoughts out. And, I guess people get something out of it based on us closing in on 15,000 followers on Facebook, which is great. And I thank you all for that. Tonight is just about 3 months since the last show. I won't lie and say that it was by design, because it wasn't. I wanted to do something in January, and then just time couldn't get there. And then I didn't want to rush it. And then the ceiling started caving in. And then it's like, you kind of got to wait for things to settle out a little bit before you start talking. It's the Olympic break. Figure, why not now? No better time than now. So a lot to go over tonight. And that is where we will start. We are just a month removed from yet another very public admission from this front office that the New York Rangers are going to disassemble the roster. Retool, rebuild, reduce, reuse, recycle, whatever. I don't really care what the terminology is. It's public relations anyway. Those letters are meant to talk to the fringe season ticket buyer, not the hardcore fan. And I felt that way in 2018 as well. No actual Rangers fan needs a letter to tell them what the team is going to do. No actual Rangers fan is surprised that this team is selling off. No actual hockey fan is either. A lot of people criticize the letter as Drury showing his hand and that somehow that impacts trade returns. And I think that's a little ridiculous. We'll get to that. We said at the start of the season that when healthy and full, this roster was better than the roster that won the President's Trophy. As things have gone on, We've certainly taken a lot of flack for that take based on the results. But I think that response illustrates a misconception about the comparison. So let me be very clear and reiterate. When healthy, the Rangers that started the 2025-26 season were a better roster than the Rangers that ended the 23-24 playoffs in the Eastern Conference Final in Game 6 in Florida. Felt that way over the summer. Felt that way in camp. Feel that way now. Nobody ever said the results would be better. Nobody said anything more other than this roster was better. And I maintain that if you go player by player, it is. When healthy at the start of the season, the roster had 6 top 6 forwards and at least 2.5 functional defensemen, as opposed to 5 top 6 forwards and 1.5 functional defensemen 2 years ago. You may recall, or maybe you don't, that Alex Wenberg was the top line right wing for Zibanejad and Kreider in an elimination game in the 3rd round in Florida. Pardon me if I think that that's suboptimal. The Rangers' top 4 defense that game featured Adam Fox, who is elite, and 3 guys who weren't. Schneider was half functional in the role that he played. Pardon me if I think that that's suboptimal. Saying this team was better than that team doesn't mean this team was good. It means that one was pretty bad. And the funny part about all of this is that we said it at the time, the team was not good enough. They were a top 6 forward short. They were too reliant on a power play and goaltending, and it would ultimately bite them in the ass and be their demise, which it was. We said at the time, they weren't really good at 5-on-5, had a lot of trouble defending, constantly fell behind in games, had to pull some bullshit out of their asses and find a way to come back and win games. Oh, and the goalie was really, really good that year. That's why they had this smoke and mirrors record that they had. They won a bunch of regular season games they didn't deserve to win. Much like this year, they lost a bunch of regular season games early in the year they didn't deserve to lose. That's hockey. But Miller missed the start of the year. And then Trocheck went down as well. And it just never got a chance to gel. And then when Shesterkin and Fox went down, curtains. Just not going to be able to overcome that. I'm sure we'll sprinkle more comparison talk throughout the show when we discuss why we are where we are. But I do maintain the opening night fully healthy roster is better than the one that Shesterkin carried as far as he could 2 years ago. That was a forward short. If you want to blame Chris Drury for something, that's a big one. I'd blame him for that. But anyway, they've told the casuals how they feel with a very public letter, which I will go ahead and read to you all. We wanted to take a moment to connect with our loyal and passionate fan base. We know and feel your disappointment with how the season has gone to this point. We are just as frustrated and want nothing more than to deliver an on-ice product you can be proud of. It's what drives us every day. No one in the organization is happy with what has transpired, from management to coaches to players. Over the last few years, we've had some successes and some moments to cherish, but ultimately, it was not the end goal. We are working relentlessly every day to bring a Stanley Cup to New York because that is what our fans deserve. With our position in the standings and injuries to key players this season, we must be honest and realistic about our situation. We are not going to stand pat. A shift that will give us the ability to be smart and opportunistic as we retool the team. This will not be a rebuild. This will be a retool built around our core players and prospects. We will target players that bring tenacity, skill, speed, and a winning pedigree with a focus on obtaining young players, draft picks, and cap space to allow us flexibility moving forward. That may mean saying goodbye to players that have brought us and our fans great moments over the years. These players represented the Rangers with pride and class and will always be a part of our family. As we start on this new strategic plan, we will continue to play hard with pride and passion for our fans. We appreciate your unwavering support for the Rangers more than we can describe, and thank you all for what you do for our organization. You will begin to see some of our plans come to light in the coming weeks and months. Let's go Rangers. So, Chris Drury, or the intern that he had write this, basically took the 2018 letter, dropped into the chat GPT, had it remixed for current day. Do I care about the letter? No. That letter really isn't intended for someone like me or you, frankly. There we go. That's intended for the corporate season ticket holder because they're going to want to know why the team is bad. We know why and don't need to be told. Did I need this sort of public acknowledgement to tell me where they were going? No. They have no choice but to go this way. It has been a miserable season. You know, media goes to Miller to get his thoughts after loss, and he says some nonsense about mindset and getting better, and people don't want to hear it. But what do you expect him to say? Like really, like what is he supposed to say? Yeah, it's his job as captain and all, and I get that, but like I don't know why people expect some sort of like valuable conversation. I mean, they know they're bad. They're living it every day. Do I think in any way, shape, or form the letter does anything positively or negatively in regards to how they go about saying goodbye to players that have brought us and our fans great moments over the years? No. Do you think that general managers around the league were shocked when a team in the bottom 5 of the standings waves the white flag? You think they texted each other and were like, wow, do you see what Drury just said that letter? Like, I'm shocked that the Rangers are selling. If there's any solace in any of this, it's that they appear at least cosmetically to have chosen a direction. They're not going to try and keep a core together that hasn't won and isn't going to win. And we've said from the very beginning of BlueTruth, back in May of 2021, 50 episodes ago, that this team didn't have that long of a window because the core of the team then was a 27-year-old Mika Zibanejad, a 28-year-old Artemi Panarin, and a 29-year-old Chris Kreider. We said that a lot. So go back and watch. Don't take my word for it. It's all on YouTube. It's all recorded. Like, I don't get any enjoyment out of this, but this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. The reality of this is that they just got old. We'll get into the whole Drury thing in a bit because there's certainly a lot to talk about there. But if you just take a step back, they got old. Were there mistakes made along the way? Absolutely. Well documented ones. And we've certainly documented them. I've got 5 of note, which will come up later in the show. But at the end of the day, they had somewhat of a window. They went for it, and they fell short. And here we are. Window's closed. And arguably, they didn't do enough to keep it open or open it enough, but now it's shut. The 2021-22 through 23-24 Rangers will be remembered mostly like the 11-12 to 16-17 Rangers were. In both cases, elite goaltending almost took them all the way, but just fell short. And again, the Rangers were unable to take this massive advantage they had in the form of the best goalie in the world and do enough around that to generate any relevant hardware. The more things change, the more they stay the same. However, if nothing else, now they've got their eyes on the future. And that is the right thing to do. Comments. Joel Shanker, let's face it, they made a mistake signing Shesterkin to $11 million contract, handcuffed the franchise. No, it didn't. We'll get to that later on, but no, it didn't in any way, shape, or form. Boris was laughing at something, not sure what. Amy Furlani fired Drury. We'll get to that. Brian says Joel Shanker is one of the only players we've got that shows up every night. Hard to disagree, referring to Shesterkin. PJ, brother, the core peaked without winning. Yep. That's not me saying he's not good. They need the money to improve the roster. Who didn't they sign? Who couldn't they have signed? They had money. Money wasn't the problem. They got rid of guys to create money. Guys that didn't matter. We'll get to that. So the moves have started. The largest so far, obviously, was when the Rangers sent Artemi Panarin to the Los Angeles Kings. In exchange for Panarin, the Rangers received Kings' top prospect, Liam Greentree, who is currently playing with the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL, and a conditional third-round pick. This might be a 2 Gatorade night. Why is this? Okay. Love technology. Okay. Anyway. Greentree is 20 years old, 6'3", 216. Right wing, he's Windsor's captain, which is a role that Will Cooley held in 21-22, and also Adam Graves held in 1987 through 1988. Greentree was the 26th overall pick in the 2024 draft, taken 4 spots ahead of where the Rangers took defenseman E.J. Emery. Okay, a lot to go over here. On the trade itself, let me start with this. What really just blows my mind about how the fan base is treating this whole thing in relation to how everybody talks about Goodrow, Trouba, and Kreider. And maybe it shouldn't blow my mind like at all, but it does. And that there's just zero consistency among this base. None. People still talk about how those 3 were mistreated on the way out, despite having no protections against being moved. And now they say the Rangers should have been harder with Panarin, who called the shots the whole way. The Rangers made Panarin an offer before the season, and it was basically a short, team-friendly offer at a dollar amount that Panarin was just never going to take, and he didn't. And then things got quiet, and the season just kind of spiraled out of control. And at that point, the decision was made, very publicly, that the team was moving on. So realistically, I don't think at that point the Rangers could even have made Panarin an offer the way things were falling apart. So really, the Rangers did everything right here within the limitations of what they could do. They gave Panarin's camp all the freedom to talk to other teams, find the places he'd be okay going, and then the Rangers would work out a deal. Panarin's representation, Paul Theophanis, apparently talked to everyone, got offers, and it came down to Los Angeles as the only team that Panarin would waive for. So that was that. They essentially tried to use offers from teams they had no interest in going to in efforts to bring up offers for where he did want to go. You know, you did hear Seattle offered him a long deal, so he didn't want to go there. He left money on the table to go to LA, and that was his right. It's kind of like the Fall Out Boy song. You look so Seattle, but you feel so LA. People are up in arms about the trade return. They're highly upset. They think the Rangers should have forced Panarin to open up his list of teams so that the Rangers could get a better return. They think Drury should not have forced a deal prior to the March 6th deadline against this backdrop of the Olympic roster freeze. These people are not serious people. You can't always take the viewpoint that everything the Rangers do is wrong, especially when you're taking both sides of the same issue to do it. Call it like it is. Panarin held the cards the whole time. The Rangers had no choice but to sit back and let this process unfold the way Panarin wanted it to unfold. People are mad at the Rangers for not getting a bigger package back. Okay. What were they supposed to do? Chris Drury was at the mercy of the Panarin camp, 100%. And when Panarin decided it was Los Angeles, the Kings knew they decided it was Los Angeles, and they were then essentially bidding against themselves. People are mad at the Rangers for allowing the Kings to know they were the only team. What were they supposed to do? Chris Drury had to give Panarin permission to talk to other teams to find out where he wanted to go, because Panarin had a full no movement clause that Panarin would have to waive for the Rangers to trade him anywhere. He could have easily just played out the season or sat the rest of the way, skated into free agency, and then picked any team in the league he wanted to go to when they were all flush with cash this summer as the cap goes up and everybody else already signed. Talk was Florida and Tampa were high on his list. There was no way for him to do that now, maybe in the summer. He could have just sat by and waited. Chose not to. People are mad that the Rangers rushed to get a deal done prior to the Olympic freeze as this self-imposed deadline, and that hurt their return because the Kings would have offered more as it got closer. Here's why that doesn't make sense. It was Panarin who wanted this done before the freeze so that he would have ample time to move his family while the NHL was on a 3-week break. This is what he wanted. And since Panarin held all the cards and at any time could have said he just wasn't going anywhere, this is the rules of the game that we play. For those of you who remember the 2001 movie Ocean's 11, this was like the heist scene when Brad Pitt's character Rusty was on the phone with Andy Garcia's character Terry Benedict and giving him clear instructions on what to do with the money in the Bellagio's vault or they'd blow up everything. Great movie. One of my all-time favorites. Very rewatchable. But the point is, Drury had to do exactly as Panarin and his representation wanted at all times, or Panarin tells them to eat a bag and he's not going anywhere, which was his contractual right to do. And realistically, if the offer from LA was a half a gallon of ice cream and that's all, well, it's a half a gallon of ice cream or it's nothing. This is the power of a no movement clause. But this is the issue. You can't say the Rangers did wrong with Goodrow, did wrong with Trouba, did wrong with Kreider, and did wrong with Panarin. That doesn't make any sense. You can't want the team to treat the guy with full no movement protection like we were doing him a favor, but be sweet as candy to 3 guys who didn't have full no movement protection and believe they should have been treated like they did. That's just not logical at all. Barclay Goodrow didn't have a no movement clause. He had a 15-team no trade clause, which did not prevent him from being put on waivers. The Rangers waived him as it was their contractual right to do. Trouba didn't have a no movement clause as of July 1st, 2024. He had a 15-team no trade clause, which did not prevent him from being put on waivers, which the Rangers threatened to do if he didn't accept a trade. The same as Tampa Bay did to Ryan McDonough a few years ago, but no one sees a bad eye about that. He went back there. The Rangers would have been able to waive him. They could do that. They wanted him to at least give him a chance to dictate where he would go. Went to Anaheim. Chris Kreider didn't have a no movement clause as of July 1st, 2024 either. He had a 15-team no trade. Given Kreider's status within the hierarchy and history of the team, they did everything they could to make his departure one that he was amenable to, and Kreider acknowledged as much on the way out. Panarin had a full no movement clause, which was given to him by former general manager Jeff Gorton. And that's okay. When you sign big name players to long-term and expensive deals, these are table stakes. Players do not want to be shipped off to some outpost in Western Canada without their approval. The no movement clause is something players worth signing negotiate into deals, and if you don't give it to them, someone else will. The Rangers are not unique in their use of this. I did a little research. At the start of the season, Boston had 5 no movement clauses. Carolina had 7. Dallas 6. Edmonton 10. Florida 9. Devils have 5. Toronto has 5. Vancouver, the worst team in the league, has 7. And I'm just talking about no movement clauses. I'm not even counting no trade clauses here, just the no moves. So this is not some phenomenon that only the Rangers, utilize that nobody else does. It is part and parcel of all of this. So I don't blame Jeff Gorton for giving it to him, and I don't blame Panarin for using it as it is intended to be used. This is just how it goes. Listen, I was a Panarin fan long before he donned a Ranger jersey. I followed his career from Chicago to Columbus to New York. I was happy. I was thrilled when he came here. Fantastic, fantastic hockey player. By a mile, the best free agent signing this cursed franchise has ever made. They don't have a player like him on the roster or on the way. And that presents challenges. But having said all of that, it was the absolute right move to let him go. No question about it. For a ton of reasons. First and foremost, Panarin will be 35 before my kid goes trick-or-treating in the fall. This team needs to get younger. They can't hitch the wagon to these guys that old. And again, they had somewhat of a window. They went for it, and they didn't win. It happens. Only one team wins every year, and 31 other teams lose. This team's window was always going to be on the shorter end because the forward core was led by guys who were close to 30 at the time. Panarin, Zibanejad, and Kreider. People will say, okay, well, why didn't they sign him to the short-term deal LA offered him that he did sign, the 2-year extension? Because he didn't want that deal here. And on top of that, what sense would it have made for the Rangers to give him that deal? So, okay. They signed Panarin to his age 35 and 36 years as they're trying to retool the roster around him. What does that do for the team? What does that do for him? Total rocking chair deal for both sides. It gives each of them something to do, but they don't get anywhere. By the time Panarin was open to the short deal, the Rangers had already made the decision, the only one they could make, which was to press reset. There would have been no point whatsoever in bringing him back. And he knew that. You may not like it, but you should accept it. So, am I happy with the trade return? Not particularly. Do I think they should have gotten more? Always. I always want more in a deal. That's okay, obviously. Am I going to blame the general manager? No. I am well aware that everyone wants to. But no. Because any scenario you want to come up with about more teams involved and more time waiting and more hardball with a guy with a full no move are just mental gymnastics in your mind that are not grounded in the reality of the situation that the player had all the control here. He just did. It is what it is. Sometimes you play blackjack and you get dealt a 12 and you pull a few cards and you get to a 19 and the dealer turns over 20 anyway. You did everything you could. That is just the hand you're dealt. So for Liam Greentree, they did get LA's top prospect. Now, Having said that, as things used to be around here when Brennan Othman was the Rangers' top prospect, being a team's top prospect doesn't mean you're all that great. In some cases, it means you're just the smartest kid in remedial math. Greentree will end up being most likely a middle six winger with some scoring pop and some size. He's 20 years old in the OHL, and that's not exactly a great way to showcase what you can do because you're generally among the oldest players there. It's kind of weird with the contracts and the minor leagues. It's kind of weird, whatever. But there's a reason he's there. It's because he has to be there, not because he needs to be there. His offensive numbers have come down this year, which some do attribute to the loss of his center, Ilya Protas, who's in the Caps organization, not Alexei. I think it's the brother. But to be fair, also, Greentree had wrist surgery over the summer. Both things can be true. We'll see. Drury said that they liked Greentree a lot, and they preferred him to a 26-1 or a 27-1. If you believe that it's a retool versus a rebuild, then that does check out. Greentree will turn pro in the fall, and whoever they take first round this year likely would have 2 or 3 years before doing the same. That does make sense from that standpoint. It checks out that they'd want an asset closer to on-ice use than one they would have to wait for. So Greentree, in the hierarchy of prospects, I would slot in as number 2 or 3 in the system behind Gabe Perreault and possibly Scott Morrow. Now, it would not surprise me at all if Greentree's on the opening night roster in the fall. Should they do that? I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. A lot of comments coming in, so let's try to go back and get to these. Brian, no questions to join the podcast. Thank you, brother. Good to see you. Sal, bottom line, this needed to happen. I agree. Boris was laughing in the Shesterkin comment. I agree. Ryan Leach, brother, I don't trust this front office to put together another winning team. We will get to that. Unbelievable how you think this president's this better. Well, Amy, the president's trophy team sucked is the point. Their top 6 when healthy before the Panarin trade is better than it was that year. They didn't have 6 forwards. They had 5. The Rangers had 6 this year. The Rangers had 1.5 defensemen that year, Adam Fox and Braden Schneider. Gavrikov alone is a significantly better defenseman than Trouba, Miller, and Lindgren combined. Lindgren was not a good defenseman. He just put his face in front of pucks. That's not defense. K'Andre Miller cost them 5 or 6 games alone last year, and Jacob Trouba is a parking cone. So, yes, I will take this roster over that roster, results aside. Robert Simpson, wish they would not have gotten, he held the cards. That's simple. Yes, correct. 100%. Craig Banks, new name. Brother, how are you? Could be a power forward. Everybody wants Tom Wilson. That's like the, that's like the hot thing. I don't know that is really the case. Again, Craig acknowledges that's what it is. Roman Nils, Panarin said there was no offer. They didn't make an offer when the letter came. They didn't offer before the season started. It was just short and not what he wanted. And then things spiraled and they couldn't really make him an offer at that point. Kraken offered 4x13. Yes, they did. And he didn't take it. Chris, what's up? Yes, time to move on. Again, they traded him for what they could get. They didn't control anything. If he told them, I don't want to be traded, he would not have been traded. So either you take what you can get or you get nothing. What they got is better than nothing. Tom, is it customary to advertise your group or the Rangers groups? Well, I don't have a group, Tom. It's a page. So yes, the page shares information and news constantly. We do that with the shows and the news and everything else. People don't know how this stuff works. It does. Yeah, but it was, it was just LA. That's confirmed. He only wanted to go to LA. He said, I will only waive to go to LA. This is all it's all out there. You don't take my word for it. It is all out there. He said he will only waive to go to LA. He may have considered other places, but at the end, he said, I want to go to Los Angeles. Unfortunately, those who are complaining about the trade are clueless. I don't disagree. Again, they have less no movement clauses than other teams. I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that. There is not a player on this team that has a no movement clause that should not have a no movement clause and wouldn't have got one somewhere else. Let's see. There's at least two, Fox and Mika. Okay, so Fox probably wouldn't have signed, and Mika's no movement. Mika wouldn't have signed. When players sign 7-year deals, they're on the hook. So if you decide to then trade them 6 days later to Calgary, well, they're on the hook. So they don't want that. And I don't blame them. They want to approve where you send them to. That's the only reason. Let's see. There's a lot of... What's up, Michael? How are you? Tom, great show as always. Difficult to make a show retaining great teams at the bottom of the standings. Well, Tom, brother, that's going to be a it's going to be a theme for a while, unfortunately. Oh, it is what it is. Okay. Next up. Carson Soucy was traded. Rangers moved off Carson Soucy. They traded Carson Soucy to the New York Islanders for a 3rd-round pick. This is yet another example of Rangers fans just being angry to be angry and taking the negative side of everything all the time because they want to be aggrieved of something. This might be a 2 Gatorade night, so I have a sealed one here. You might get there. A lot to talk about. You may recall that the trade to acquire Carson Soucy at the cost of a 2025 3rd-round pick was widely seen as a disaster for the Rangers by this fan base. Soucy became the whipping boy relatively quickly by then. That stigma maintained its way into this season as he and Connor Sheary drew all the ire of the whole fan base. They were the problems with the roster. And then when Drury moves on from Soucy, who was a pending unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, which they were not bringing back, at the price of a 3rd-round pick, which is what they used to get him, base is up in arms about, they didn't get enough back. People said it was bad that they traded a 3rd-round pick to get him, and that it was bad that they traded him for a 3rd-round pick. They screamed when he gave up a 3rd for Soucy, and then screamed when he got a 3rd back. Sure. Okay. That's not analysis. That's you just emotionally venting. Look, to top it all off, Drury, that evil guy, that Chris Drury, he just gets rid of players against their will all the time as if they have no say in the matter, which they don't, and sent Soucy to the Islanders locally after his wife recently gave birth to a newborn. And it would have been a lot easier. It was a lot easier, for him to stay local. So he didn't send them away to Vancouver or Edmonton or LA. What a terrible person Chris Drury is. Having said that, if he was offered a 2 and didn't take the 2, that's a problem, but I can't imagine that he was. They did right by Soucy here. They let him stay around, hang around this season. He's going to be a free agent in the summertime. Again, the wife just had a kid. It's fine. Like, they did the right thing for the player. That will go a long way with their players and other players as well. Did they need to do that? No, I don't think they needed to do that. I've been on record once, twice, or I don't know, like 100 times. I was perfectly fine with how Goodrow and Trouba were moved. And if anything, I have issue with Trouba not being moved sooner. Soucy was not the problem here. Not even a little bit. So I'm perfectly fine with how that turned out. They did good by the player. They got back their investment after using him for a while. We're good. It's fine. People just want to be mad about something. Mark Brown. I forgot you were doing a show. I reminded you. No, I'm sorry. The 3rd back then they got was okay, but they used them for a year and a half too, Mark. I mean, that wasn't like, it's like if you buy a t-shirt and return it after you've used it and you kind of used it for free. Drury should have been given an assist on that goal Soucy scored on a few weeks ago. Listen, that was a very productive goal for the Rangers. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. It must really he can't do anything right. Just can't. We'll get to that, Brian. My bullet points are it's there. Oh, I know, Mark. You know my pain. You see my pain constantly. I know you do because you comment on it on social media. All right, so that's what's happened so far. So now the question is, They've gotten rid of their unrestricted free agents. Not a lot of surprises there. The only other two pending UFAs that are around are Brodzinski and Quick. Quick will only go somewhere if he asks to, and he probably won't. Brodzinski maybe gets them a low round pick if they want to try to do that. Whatever. I'm not concerned about that. Then gets interesting. From the standpoint of who I think is absolutely safe, other than the obvious ones, which are Zibanejad, Miller, Gavrikov, Fox, and Shesterkin, there really aren't a ton of guys that are absolutely safe. I think Gabe Perreault is safe. I think Scott Morrow is safe. I think Will Cooley is safe. I don't think that they're entertaining calls on those three. The top name who will be available, what's happening, and I think is an almost certainty to go, is Vincent Trocheck. When you think back to the letter 2.0, while I don't give Drury the credit for writing it because I don't think that he did, and if he did, he just threw it through ChatGPT or Grok or whatever. If you want to look for any sort of clues, one line stuck with me from the first time I read it. That may mean saying goodbye to players that have brought us and our fans great moments over the years. When I read that, immediately, flashing red lights, that was Panarin and Trocheck. Panarin for the OT goal against the Penguins, among other things, and Trocheck for the OT goal in Game 2 against Carolina in 24, among other things, but primarily those two. Am I reading too far into this? Almost certainly. But that's okay. Trocheck will turn 33 this summer with 3 more years at a very manageable $5.625 million cap hit. He had a no movement clause the last 3 years, which downgraded to a 12-team no trade this year. Ironically, we said at the time the deal was made that it felt like it was structured so that when the Rangers ended their window because their big guys got old, which is where we are, they had the flexibility to with Trocheck. Is exactly what's played out. Guys, it's on video. Don't take my word for it. Go back and watch. Go find the time. It's there. I promise you. I remember saying it. There is an obvious link here between Trocheck and the Minnesota Wild. Bill Guerin is the GM for Minnesota. He is also the GM for Team USA. The Wild are in need of a center after trading Marco Rossi to Vancouver in the Quinn Hughes deal. It feels like there's a really great landing spot for him, or at least to me, the most likely one of the bunch. The downside to Minnesota is that they gave up some premium assets to Vancouver for Quinn Hughes. So there's less for the Rangers to pick from. Ideally, in a perfect world, which we do not live in a perfect world, it's Danila Yurov. He's 22, center, 24th overall pick in 22, 6'1", like a really ideal fit for where they are right now. I'm not sure if it's who Drury wants or thinks he can get, and I'm not sure if Bill Guerin would let him go. I think they think very highly of him. That's why he didn't get traded for Hughes. I think the headliner in any deal with Minnesota would be Charlie Stramel. Stramel was taken 21st overall in 23. He's a center, which they need. 6'3". You know, Drury likes that. And I think had Minnesota not taken him at 21 that year, he would have been the Rangers pick at 23 that year, where they took Gabe Perreault. I think the Rangers also look at a guy named David Jiricek, who was the 6th overall pick in 22 for Columbus, was then traded to Minnesota, right side defenseman, 22, 6'4", feels like that's also doable. Minnesota does not have a 1 or a 2 this year. So if you look at the draft picks, it's the 27 one. I think they want to make this, and they really need to make this, a multi-piece return. So if it's something like Stramel, Jiricek, and the 27-1, I think that's probably doable. I think if it's Yurov, it's not going to be a three-piece suit, so to speak. We keep hearing they want to replicate the blueprint of the deal that brought Brock Nelson to Colorado from the Islanders. Those three pieces check those boxes, so that does that. I know that there is some talk about the Wild making goalie prospect Jesper Wallstedt available, and I've seen people tell me that's who the Rangers should target, and it gives me a headache. For what should be really obvious reasons, I don't think the Rangers should be looking for a goaltender of all things as the primary piece of a trade like this. If you need me to explain that to you, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to tell you. Like no, we're not gonna. That's not gonna happen. Detroit is another team that's linked to Trocheck. I think just a familiar. I think the wife might be from there. They have not made the playoffs since 2016. They haven't won a playoff series since 2013. Now, sidebar, no, the Rangers have not won anything since 1994. And of all people, you'll never hear me say otherwise. But look at a team like Detroit, original six. The Rangers have rebuilt, torn down, rebuilt, and are tearing down again since Detroit won a playoff series. Just for context, that's all. With Detroit, Marco Kasper would be a hell of a get. They can get him. Don't know if they can get him. But 22 years old in April, 8th overall pick in 22. Center, plays some wing as well. He'd be a real nice fit moving forward. It might be a lot to ask, though. Detroit has their first rounder this year. Detroit's got more in their system because they didn't make a deal the way Minnesota did. So it remains to be seen what might be taken from there. There are some other teams, but I would be absolutely shocked if Drury doesn't move on from Trocheck in this market, which will absolutely overpay for a center. I do not think they should wait until the summer. I think the time is now. John Cena. This would be nothing at all like the Panarin deal because Trocheck's only trade protection is a 12-team no trade. A lot of options. Now, he has term on his existing deal at a number which is really very cap friendly. Like, this is a deal where the opposing side is not only getting a player that's useful, they're getting him at a really easy number to work with in a cap league. So, this is a no-brainer for them. Trocheck's not going to be here in 2 weeks. There's just no way. The other name I think has a very good chance of getting moved, which I'm going to get pushback on, and that's okay, is Braden Schneider. Schneider is going to be 25 before the start of next season. He is a restricted free agent, so he's going to get a raise from the $2.2 million he's made this year and last year. When everyone's healthy, he's still playing bottom pair minutes, which I think is a problem, frankly. I wouldn't put him there. But if he's going to stay on the right side, they got Fox. Excuse me. Talking way too much tonight. A lot to say. They have Borgen on the right side. They have Scott Morrow on the right side. They very well may acquire someone like a David Jiricek from Minnesota for Trocheck who plays the right side. He plays with a level of physicality, and I get that, but even that's kind of dropped off in the last couple of years. I think it's possible that I know he's only 24, but I think we might have seen his ceiling. So do I want to lock into a multi-year deal of what I think he's going to be? I don't know that I do. I think testing the market here is smart. Let some team bowl you over. If the deal is worth taking, take it. I'm okay with that. But if he can be moved for some sort of impact forward or the assets that will help the Rangers get some sort of impact forward, that makes a lot of sense. I think the one person who's probably going to be the most upset if Schneider gets traded is my son Braden, who has taken on Schneider as a favorite player because they share a name. He's 8 and he'll get over it. He'll go to Disney. He'll be fine. I would also look at moving someone like a Sam Carrick. Carrick is 34, has one more year left on his deal, easy $1 million bucks. Could be a fourth line depth center, plays, wherever you want to play him. Really cheap contract. Should have some value in this market because of the position that he plays. Again, centers are hard to come by. There is no reason they can't get a mid-round pick or better for a guy like that, depending where he goes. And they should. They have to get younger for one, have to get some guys out of the way for two. Don't forget, Adam Edstrom will eventually be back, and he was their fourth line center for a while. So you can't have these guys block It's Sam Carrick. You'll be okay. Brandon Hoffman is not worth a half-eaten ice cream sandwich that's melting. Disaster. It is what it is. Hated the pick then, hate it now. The name people love to bring up was Alexi Lafreniere. Here's where I am on Alexi Lafreniere. At the end of the day, every player is tradable in the right deal. As highly as I think of the few really relevant players on this team, namely Fox and Shesterkin, both could absolutely be moved if the price was right. Am I going to turn down Cale Makar for Adam Fox? Absolutely not. So I say that to say this. Given where Lafreniere is right now, and this year certainly has been a statistical disappointment, there is no question, to quote Dave Maloney, I just don't see a scenario where a deal is presented to the Rangers which makes moving Lafreniere make sense. For all of the talk of the Rangers don't draft well, they can't develop, all that, there is some truth to that. I'm not denying that. But people are just not in touch with reality if they don't think every single team in the National Hockey League takes Alexi Lafreniere at number 1 in 2020. Same for Kaapo Kakko in 2019. Those are picks I do not blame the Rangers for. It just didn't work out. If you want to blame the Rangers for picks, I blame them immensely for Lias Andersson. He was taken 7th overall, and at the time, they thought he would just step right into their third line and play center. I don't want to take guys with third line ceilings that high in the draft. Makes no sense. Give me the boom or bust. Give me the alpha talent that I can't find anywhere else because they never leave. I can find bottom 6 guys. Rangers excel at that. I don't need to draft those guys high. So that same thought process is why I still will never, and to this day, I don't kill them for Vitaly Kravtsov. He had the highest ceiling of any player when he was drafted in 2018, 9th overall. It obviously didn't work out, right? I'm not saying that it did. Of course not. But I'm okay with that. When you swing for the fences, you're going to strike out. Maybe a lot. I'm good with that. Keep swinging because when you make contact, it'll be worth it. Lafreniere was the correct pick. Kakko was the correct pick. It didn't work out. It hasn't worked out. That's hockey. The talk of moving Lafreniere to Seattle for Shane Wright, I find that intriguing because I think they're similar players that may benefit from a change of scenery. Again, Wright's a center, which they need. Like, I can see that making sense. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But that's a conversation. Like, that, I think, is something that I can get behind. So people want to move Lafreniere, among other reasons, because of the contract. And I get that. But as is generally the case, people, I think, are clueless about how the cap works. The Rangers right now, you may not know this, maybe you do. If you follow BlueTruth, you do. They have $31 million of open space in the summer. They have nobody to spend it on. They're fine. Okay. I can make a very cogent case that the flat cap era hurt no team the way it hurt the Rangers. The deals they signed for Panarin and Trouba in the summer of 19 would have aged a lot more gracefully had the cap not gone essentially flat for 5 years. It's the same argument about Shesterkin because people are looking at his deal through the lens of the flat cap era, which we're no longer in. The cap was between 79.5, 83.5 for 6 years. 3 of those years, 81.5 on the nose, no change. Cap was 95.5 this year. It's 104 next year, and it's 113.5 the year after that. It is skyrocketing. Igor's deal stays flat at 11.5. He becomes less and less of a burden against the cap every single year, which, again, they're flush with cash and they have no one to spend it on. And by the way, have you been watching this team lately? Have you seen this team without Shesterkin? Like, do you really want to die on the hill of this idea that he's overpaid? I don't know how you look at things and don't seem as pretty underpaid given just how god-awful they are without him. The Rangers have been the product of elite goaltending for 20 years. And I said it before and I'll say it again, bears repeating. People have just gotten so used to this that they take it for granted. And I do hope that seeing this team without Shesterkin opens up some eyes, that it's just not always going to be like this. Again, went off on a tangent. So back to Lafreniere. While, yes, the production is disappointing, and I won't sugarcoat that, they are not in any sort of cap-based necessity to move him. If it makes sense, makes sense. To sell the kid for nothing doesn't make sense. You don't need the cap space. This isn't Goodrow or Trouba, where they were dying for air and they needed to open up the window to breathe. It's not at all where they are right now. I don't think Lafreniere is moved. I don't see a scenario where they get an offer that is worth it. Also, minor wrinkle, Lafreniere does have an 8-team no-trade list. Irrelevant. Don't think it really matters. So, in summary, I think Trocheck's gone. I think Carrick should go. Schneider should absolutely be shopped. That letter can't just be about moving the pending UFAs. And they're basically stuck with Zibanejad and Miller for now. They would want to keep Fox and Shesterkin. And Gavrikov holds his fate too. Now, I do wonder on Gavrikov, like if he doesn't become more open to a move in the summer or next year, depending on the lay of the land and how the team is doing. You know, even if Mika and JT, I wonder how long they're going to want to hang around. Like, I know they're saying the right things right now. I get that. But, like, at 32, like, dude, this is the second go-around for Mika. You know, Fox and Igor, like, yeah, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel because based on their age, they'll be okay on the other side of this. I don't think it's happening anytime soon, but I don't think you can rule it out for any of those older guys with the clauses. Ton of comments, which I love you guys, by the way. All right, let's see. Trying to see where we were. Tom Bartosh, I'm sorry. Drury knew by 24, run this group, can't get it done, so he's only got what he can to retool and be competitive in 2 years. Why? Because he won't be here for the next rebuild, so he's going to try and do it fast while he's here. Gordon F. this franchise with his garbage. Drafting is how you build a franchise, not by signing UFAs in year 2 of a rebuild. Laffy needs to go. Quick, I agree, will retire. Drury needs to be bold. If we're going to go to Carolina, package with Schneider, I think they're getting Nikishin to solve second pair left issues. Saran, maybe Nadeau if we have to add a sweetener there first. I think that's a big package for Carolina to jump. I don't necessarily know that they do something like that. Not ruling it out. Brian, I've had 2 people, and I'm like, why? Like, why? Jennifer, how are you? Good to see you. I absolutely hate the topic conversations, prospect and draft picks. Well, brother, unfortunately, that's going to be a common theme for the foreseeable future. Eddie Reyes, what's up, my friend? We are in a trap right now because we don't want a bunch of good players lose games, but we want to lose games to get a better draft pick. Hey, that's coming. Absolutely. Yeah, all day. I'm not going to do that, though. Never swing on a top 10 pick. I could not disagree more. Tom, because that's where you get those players. That's where I don't want you to take a middle 6 guy in the top 10. I don't care. Go get him somewhere else. Give me someone who can be a top line player or is out of the league. I don't want any middle. Give me a star or nobody. I don't need middle 6 guys in the first round, especially high. I do. Yes, that's fine. But that was also my freshman year of college, and I turned 42 in 2 weeks. So do the math on that. Let's see. Ron wants to get rid of Laffy. I'm sure. Yeah, but for what? You want to just give him away? What's that do? Mark, I did see this report. That might be spec more than anything else, and that's fine. That's okay. Tom, thank you. Appreciate that, brother. I don't know if you've watched the show or not. I do appreciate the kind words, though. Anthony, brother, boss in the mix for Trocheck. They haven't been rumored. I still think it's I just think it's Minnesota. It makes too much sense. I don't get it. Like I just think it makes too much sense. Like I don't think he's an Olympian, honestly. Like I don't think JT Miller is either. I don't know how Adam Fox didn't make this team. Different conversation. But I feel like Garen might just like him. Oh, appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that. This is our 50th episode. We don't do too many of them, but we like to, make them quality, I guess I'll put it that way. Okay. Everyone's favorite topic. People are gonna get mad about this. Okay, so we're in another rebuild, retool, whatever nonsense term you want to use. I really don't care. What they're doing is they're selling off futures for players for futures. It's fine. Okay. Good. They should. I don't care what you call it. People think that I am this big defender of Chris Drury because I approve of the moves since the 24 deadline. And every time someone says to fire Drury, all I ask is why. And I ask them why because I generally they don't have a really good reason, or they come back with some emotional nonsense about how they should have kept fill in the blank player that they bought a jersey of 20 years ago, usually Chris Kreider. People have no ability to separate their emotions from their analysis, and there's just too much zero analytic cheerleading, or they become like the jilted ex-wife who kept notes about every single time you didn't empty the dishwasher. Not my life, by the way, very happily married. They talk about trading Brett Howden as a mistake, or the whole thing with Patrick Nemeth, and I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to entertain this nonsense. Like, if those are your main gripes, like, God bless you. I'm not going to rehash Patrick Nemeth 5 years later. Like, what are we doing? Like, if that's where we're at, right? We have been very clear about this. From the vantage point of BlueTruth, there have been 5 major mistakes that Chris Drury has made as the general manager. He did not get enough back for Pavel Buchnevich. He did not do enough to get Jack Eichel from Buffalo. He signed Mika Zibanejad as a knee-jerk reaction to not getting Jack Eichel from Buffalo. He did not go all in when he should have at the 24 deadline to get Jake Gensel. And he kept Jacob Trouba through the whole offseason 24, which ruined the next year. From the list of moves that he has made, I don't disagree with much since the 24 deadline. And I've asked people to tell me what they disagree with. And it is generally emotional nonsense. Much of what I will criticize, which I think is fair, and I agree when people do, it's the moves that weren't made. So again, the lack of aggression on Eichel and Gensel, that was a problem. Not being tougher on Trouba when the no move expired was a clear mistake. No, I do not care that your wife is having a residency in a hospital. I root for a hockey team. Deal with it. That's what the money is for. They had every intention of moving Jacob Trouba that summer using the $8 million on a winger, probably Jake Gensel. Drury let him off the hook, and that is 1,000% on Chris Drury for not just pushing harder. But when I look at the ones that he's made, the deals that he's made, and I tell you as honestly as I can, I can't point to a lot I disagree with. The logic made sense. Like, yeah, you can look back and say, oh, that didn't work out the way you wanted it to. And sometimes that's fair. But you have to judge a deal like when the deal is made. Like, did it make sense? You can't just say, oh, well, the Rangers didn't win a cup in 2023, so trading for Tarasenko and Kane was a mistake. Like, I think that's just dumb. Like, by that rationale and that litmus test, drafting Henrik Lundqvist in the 7th round of 2000 was a mistake. He didn't win a cup here. Like, it's dumb, right? The signing of Vincent Trocheck in free agency was excellent. It was. Any disagreements? No. Getting value back for Alex Georgiev was very good, especially after all that drama, which I'm not getting into tonight. They got a first back for Nils Lundqvist, and that was great. That was a great example of identifying that the pick that you made was not going to bear the fruit that you thought it would, and they got solid value back. That trade gave them the ammo to go get Tarasenko, which was great. Nico Mikkola was in that deal too. They got Patrick Kane for nothing. Oh, his hip. Okay, fine. Yeah, he was 100%. He had 6 points in the 7-game series against the Devils. You mad about that? Did you want more? Why? Because they lost? Was that his fault? Like, and that's another thing. A bit of a tangent. People get upset when the Rangers traded for rental players and then they didn't keep them. That's just a lack of complete understanding of how the cap works. An expiring contract carries value. It's open cap space. It's oxygen. It was the flat cap era. They traded for rentals like Andrew Kopp, like Frank Vetrano, like Vladimir Tarasenko, and like Nico Mikkola, and Patrick Kane, and others I haven't even mentioned because they're irrelevant, with the intention of letting them walk at the end of the year. That was the plan the whole time. That's why most of these guys came at 25% of value, because they circumvented through other team to save cap space. You should want your team to be aggressive when they think they can win. If you're in poker and you're holding a hand you think is going, you can win, that's when you put your chips in the middle. You don't want to look back and wonder and ask why. Like, could they have done more and then they didn't? Because that's how I look at the 24 deadline, and it pisses me off every single time I think about it, which is probably too often. And it's these same people who will say that the Rangers got back Urho Vakanainen for Jacob Trouba. That's asinine. They got $8 million in cap space for Jacob Trouba, and it was a miracle they didn't have to do any retention to do it. The $8 million was then used on JT Miller, who, by the way, they also got for next to nothing. Filipino get hurt again. May never play again. The Rangers didn't get back Carey Terrance for Chris Kreider. They got $6.5 million in cap space, which they subsequently used on Vladislav Gavrikov. You know, Gabe fell in their lap, but the Gabe pick was good. Othman, not so much. That's hockey. So, like I know, like, people think it's like this cool and in vogue thing to just hate on Chris Drury. Now, let me be really, really, really crystal clear. Don't be confused. Chris Drury should have been fired after the 2024 deadline for not pushing his chips in on Jake Gensel and giving a very flawed team with the elite goaltender another scorer. They lost those games to Florida basically by 1 goal each. If you get a goal scorer, may have made the difference. We'll never know, but I certainly think it's possible. But now I have to live and wonder why. I think back and I was like, man, could you damn it, like, could you have got, we could have had a cup. God damn it. Drives me nuts. And that's the regret that you don't want to live with. So I don't want to hear this bullshit nonsense. Oh, they traded and gave away a first and got a rental. Yeah, they did. That was the point. They were trying to win. You want them to do that. Now, not so much. Now you're on the other end of the cycle. So, look, I am not this Drury apologist by any means. Okay. I judge moves, not who makes them. If the houseplant makes the move, great job by the houseplant. I don't care. When moves are bad, I will be the first one to tell you. Okay? But the moves he's made since the 24 deadline, with the exception of being too soft on Trouba, which was a problem, I've agreed with them all. I do feel the fire Drury all over social media, and sometimes that's just an admission that people don't know what really was going on. Like, they're just sad that Chris Kreider was moved in a cap dump. Grow up. It's professional sports. My biggest gripe with Drury has been his lack of aggression at the worst possible times and holding on to players too long. I do not think he is incompetent. I do not think he is clueless. I think he was, and to some degree still is, a combination of being too passive and too afraid to make the wrong move at the worst possible time. Not aggressive enough. Too protective of some assets, which ultimately ended up not panning out. Given the fact that he was usually moving first-round picks and second-round picks, I understand why he held on to the Kravtsovs and the Othmans and the Kakos and whoever else, because he wasn't backfilling those with picks. Like, I get it. I do get it. But that lack of aggression was a mistake every single time. When he didn't push harder on Eichel, we didn't push harder on Gensel. These are where you can and should be critical of Chris Drury. These are big-time issues. The idea that he allowed himself to be pushed around by Jacob Trouba, treating his partial no trade like a full no move, that's a mistake, and that's a problem. That moment, and I go back to it, is when the music died. Because the 24-25 team was dead in the water because they ran back the same exact group that was there the year before that wasn't good enough. People want to talk about the coaching carousel. Okay. Well, clearly, if Mike Sullivan were available in the summer of 21 when Gerard Gallant was hired, then they would have hired Mike Sullivan. He'd have been the coach this whole time. Okay. So Gallant didn't work out. Laviolette didn't work out. Okay. Well, okay. Move on. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. Like, get the right guy. People talk about the picks under Drury not really providing much of the NHL level. Okay, well, his first rounders have been Brennan Othmann in 2021, documented mistake. No pick in 22. Perreault in 23, looks fine. Where he picked. Emery in 24, still a kid. And they made no pick last year. By the way, all of you people who fought me on the idea of them having to give Pittsburgh the pick last year to get the liability, how's that look now? Could you imagine us going through this abject disaster and then not having the first round pick because we held on to it last year? Thank God. Like, I would be absolutely apoplectic if the Rangers ended up with like a top 3 pick, which they're probably going to end up with, and they had to give it to Pittsburgh. You would find my obituary because I would have had a heart attack. I would survive that. I care too much, which is a problem, by the way. Anyway, the Rangers have not exactly prioritized their drafting under Drury, and they were in a contention window, so that makes sense. Arguably, they shouldn't have even had the picks to take Perreault and Emery because those picks should have been moved to help those contending teams. Again, you will always wonder why and if at this point. It is what it is now. The prospect system is largely bare, and that's what happens when you're trying to win and you use picks to help contenders. They should have done more of that, like I said. So all in all, is Drury the right guy to lead the whatever? I don't know. We're going to find out one way or another, but he really has a lot of work to do. Here is my fear. There has been an organizational shift, if we're being honest, going back to Tom Wilson, to get tougher to play against. I'm so sick of hearing tougher to play against. That has come largely at the expense of skill. The results that we have seen, which frankly are a result of Igor Shesterkin primarily, make people think that plan was good. It wasn't. The priority has been on grit and all that nonsense, as opposed to getting guys on the team who can put the puck in the net. And it's funny to me because I see all the comments about how they need to get grittier, as if we're not watching the same group of guys get shut out how many times this season now? 9? And 8 of them were with Artemi Panarin. So, yeah. Othmann was drafted to be a sandpaper guy with an edge that can score. He doesn't do any of that, but that was why they took him. Adam Sikora in the second round of 22 was a pest type player. He has played the same amount of NHL games as I have. Gabe Perreault fell in their laps. And I have no doubt they would have taken a bunch of other people if they could, but this kid just fell to them and they had no choice. But they had no name on the back of the jerseys when they drafted him. EJ Emery has very little offensive upside. Billed as a stalwart defender, great skater. We'll see. Malcolm Spence fell to them too. So again, I'm not going to get too upset there. But again, this is not a scorer type player. Nice player, just not a scorer. Like even with Greentree, right? Like, yes, they wanted Greentree, but he's another one. Size, physical. Like they have a type. We all have types. Personally, I'm a sucker for a hot blonde. That's what I married. Drury's type is North American, preferably American. Size, snarl, with not a lot of scoring, not that great on his feet, not much speed. That's a problem. So that's my concern. My concern is that they double down on this get harder to play against, and they forego talent that can score. You look at the team now, and they just got rid of the only scorer they had, which is fine. They should have. They want to play this north-south thing. And yes, Panarin is an east-west skill guy, and that's been the supposed problem going back to when David Quinn coached the team himself. I do not think they've done a good enough job getting the personnel for how they want to play, but they want to play the system anyway, even though it's not the best fit for their personnel. Square peg, round hole. But I have a lot of concern about the way they want to play being the way they want to play. Hockey is won by the team that scores the most goals, not the team that hits the most. When you have the most hits, it means you don't have the puck. If you have the puck, you're not hitting anyone because you have the puck. Comments. Sorry, I have a lot to talk about tonight, guys. Really. I do promise I will get to some of these comments. Ron Lee, my first episode too. I'll come with the better trade package. Thank you. No, Ron, listen. There's going to be a lot of venting for the foreseeable future. I'm telling you right now. Only way Drury's not a GM because he hires one, keeps the team president title only. Dolan likes and trusts him. Tom, Drury's big mistakes happened his first year. I would agree with that. Well, most of them. There's others, but trading Buchnevich is not a problem to me. The return was. Much of what Drury has done is trade awful contracts with players, fan base losing their minds. Thank you. Love the Trocheck signing. Yep. Ticket prices going up next season? Probably not. That's a hard sell. I don't know that they will. I'll pay it anyway, but it's only money, but whatever. Jerry, Brian has more in-depth knowledge of person about this team than anyone in the mainstream media. Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, a lot of this is venting to me. It's getting a lot. It's cathartic. I've always said that. We all love the same team. Like, we want nothing more than this team to win, which is now we've not been further away from that in a period of time. But that's my passion. That's why, again, if you've seen the commercial, do I have it? There's never a bad time to run the commercial. So we closed on our house the day of Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I always joke with my wife that buying a house was the second most important thing going on that day. I think every third thought in my mind is about the team. I can't turn it off. My Ranger Man Cave was a project that I've always wanted to do when I finally got a house. Most wives would not sign up for that. If you remember, why you like the teams that you do, it's probably some of your first emotional attachments that you make when you're a kid. I can't wait to share that with him. When we can enjoy it together, it'll be the greatest thing. That little boy just turned 8 in January. That's how long ago that was. I have a feeling they're not going to show that as much because I'm wearing a Kreider jersey and they may not want to show that on TV. Say living. John, Rangers never been about winning. It's about money. They are a for-profit enterprise, as is every team in the NHL and other sports. Look at whatever Drury spent money on UFAs. He signed all the best guys that year and all the bargain. Trocheck, Gavor, his big 2 signings. Those were home runs and a dead cap. I completely agree. Chris, it was. And honestly, like the 2023 team, if the 2023 team were coached by Laviolette, they go farther. I'd be curious your take on that. I don't think Gerard Gallant was a very good coach at all. I think it was a buffoon, actually. And again, I own that because I was in favor of the hire. But then as time went on, I realized why that was idiotic. They should have been all in, Anthony. Look, whatever Pittsburgh wanted other than Perreault, give them Othman. I don't care. Like they were so close. They could, and that team was so flawed. Like so flawed. But their power play worked and Igor worked, and that would have been enough. That's the one that kills me. It really, really does. PJ, Eichel was in a tough situation. But that's a risk worth taking. That's the thing, is you have to, that is a risk you have to take, because guys like Jack Eichel do not come available. If his head falls off in 2 years, you live with it. You don't live with regret that you didn't try. It's kind of like, they say that when people are dying on their deathbed, they talk about they regret the things they didn't do more than the things that they did. It's not the best analogy, but I think you understand where I'm coming from. How are we going to retool when no quality player is going to come here when they're how toxic? Joe, why is it toxic? Tell me why it's toxic. Listen, I'm not picking on you because I promise you I'm not. I keep hearing this. It is emotional nonsense. They got rid of shitty hockey players on shitty contracts. It's a results-oriented business. Barclay Goodrow sucked. Jacob Trouba sucked. No, absolutely not. I promise I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on this take, which others share. I cannot disagree with that more. Cannot. No. Let's see. Hashtag structure. I used to shop there. That's how old I am. You can hit more than and still have more possession. Yeah, but how often does that happen? Usually, if you're hitting, you are trying to regain possession. It's a measure of. Gallant was a fan on the bench. Yup. Pom-poms. He wanted Eichel out west. It doesn't matter. No, Kurt, I disagree. Give them whatever they want. I don't care what they gave them. Overpay. It doesn't matter. They keep rate. Okay, we'll pay whatever you want. You want stock in the team? Take it. They should have. No, I disagree with that. I know what you're saying. I get it. You overcome that by overpaying. Everyone's got a price for the $1 million man. Okay. What on earth do they need to do now? Okay. Let me take a swig of Gatorade. The Rangers need to prioritize talent. They need to become a team that have talented players on it, that have the puck a lot. Only good things can happen when you have the puck, and only bad things can happen when you do not. It would behoove them a lot to lose every game the rest of this season and probably next season while we're at it. They absolutely need a very high draft pick in this draft. Now remember, in the lottery, the most you can drop is 2 spots if 2 teams below you jump you. So let's just say they have the worst record in the league. Oh no. The worst at that point they could be is the 3rd pick. Now, Ranger luck would indicate that probably happens, so fine, but that's okay. They got to do that. They need to bring in top-end guys. The pieces they currently have are not top-end guys. Perreault is a nice player. I like Gabe Perreault. He's not going to be an alpha. Green Tree, the same. Like, they need the alpha guys, specifically centers. I do have concerns, and I know it's a big problem. It's a good problem to have, I guess. At the top of this draft, it's not centers. Gavin McKenna's a wing. Stenberg is a wing. There are some high-end defensemen after that. The team desperately needs long-term centers. And they may not be in the best position to do that, but they need talent, period. Beggars can't be choosers, so it is what it is. But their current mix is a lot of wingers. And that is a problem. These games mean nothing. And I say that as someone who has 5 more games to go to this season at the Garden. Fox and Shesterkin, look like they're coming back after the break. Kind of wish they wouldn't. Losing is winning. Winning is losing. They need to get as high up in the draft as they can. It is absolutely imperative that they harvest as much value as they can the way this has gone. Every single point the rest of the way is ridiculously counterproductive to what they need to do. They generally have a bunch of guys with middle 6 ceilings. They're not likely to be able to trade their way out of that. This is why being really bad this year and really bad next year, and maybe even the year after that, is so important. They need to get high-end talent. They can and likely will be very active in free agency, but that only goes so far. This is the part in the cycle where, as bluntly as I can say it, and you know that's my style, you guys and gals need to put your big boy pants on and your big girl pants on, put your pom-poms down, and realize the best thing for this franchise is losing as many regular season meaningless goddamn games as possible. The system rewards it. This is how you best position yourself to get high picks. It's math. It's 3rd grade math. You will not remember these losses in a while. You just won't. Do you remember any of the losses in like 2019 or 20 or 18, whatever? I don't. I don't care. We'll get into like who they might end up taking once we have some more clarity around to where they're going to pick. But I will tell you this, at this moment, I do think Chris Drury would absolutely wet himself to take Tynan Lawrence. And if you want to know why, Google Tynan Lawrence and where he goes to college and the position that he plays. This summer, revisit things with Mika and JT and Gavrikov. See if they still want to stay. Maybe they do. And if they do, it is what it is. That's their contractual right. Same as Panarin had. This will not be rebuilt or retooled or re-whatever. I mean, I'm sorry. This will be rebuilt, retooled, or will be whatever around Adam Fox, Igor Shesterkin first and foremost. And there is some urgency there to get back to the circle in 2 or 3 years, while those guys are still of age. You have Perreault, you have Cooley, you have guys like Laba, good support players. You got Scott Morrow, Liam Greentree. You have what you'll get back for Trocheck and anybody else that you move. You have 2 1s this year. You might add another one now or another one next year, maybe both, depending what you do. I think that they should be looking at more close to NHL ready players. Like whoever they take with the Carolina pick probably doesn't see the light of day for like 2-3 years. So if they can go trade for a 20, 21-year-old, that will expedite things, move the clock forward. It is not going to be easy, but this is the result of going for it and missing. I would make the argument, frankly, that if the exact 23-24 roster were kept together as it was, and they went into 24-25 and 25-26 with the same people: Goodrow, Kreider, Trouba, Lindgren, Keandre, VC, Kako, Huhedl. I'm forgetting people because they don't matter. The results are the same. The team got old. So the rest of this season and next season, it's not going to be fun for a lot of you. For me, I'm fine. Regular season results don't get me excited or they don't upset me. Unless they're going to start winning games, which really piss me off. That will bother me. But the one thing Drury said that hit with me, and again, I'm reading too far into it, I'm sure, is the press conference after Panarin left. That he didn't want to build a team that can just get into the playoffs, and that he wants to build a team that can win a Stanley Cup. I could not agree more. That is a core belief for me. Like, I don't need these cosmetic postseason appearances, these one and dones. I don't care. The President's Trophy, stick it up your ass. It means nothing. If you're not getting the big shiny thing at the end, you lost. And 31 teams lose every year. At least this year, they appear to be positioned to get as much value as they can for the losing. That's a good thing. But I don't see a quick fix. I think they're bad next year. And I think they're probably bad the year after. They're going to have to get aggressive, which is not necessarily Drury style, and they're going to have to get lucky along the way. They've done that once or twice. Me, I would position this team to have money available, to have a max contract on the table in the summer of 2028. It is my belief, and nothing more than that, Connor McDavid will hit the market at the end of the 2-year extension in Edmonton. And God willing, the Rangers need to be able to offer him whatever the blue hell he wants. Lose every game between now and then. I could not care less. It's fine. Get picks, get youth, and then go for the big fish. That's what I would love to see them do. I do not know if they do that. I probably don't think they will. Drury can say a lot of things, but I don't get the feeling that ownership wants to miss out on postseason revenue for too long. Yes, that's not the priority of the fan, but we'll see. We're going to get a lot of answers pretty soon here. The deadline is 2 weeks from tomorrow, depending when you're watching this. Tonight's Thursday the 19th. March 6th is the deadline. It's coming quick. Business is about to pick up, and they have to make these moves count. You look back at the sell-off in 2004. Brian Leach, Alexei Kovalev headlined a bunch of moves that basically netted them absolutely nothing. When they came out of the lockout, it was the arrival of Henrik Lundqvist that was the impetus for the impetus there to make them go the right direction. Trust me, I tell you, it was nothing they got in those trades because they got nothing. You look at the original letter in 2018, and they did get quite a bit of useful pieces in those deals. It wasn't perfect, obviously. Like the McDonough, JT Miller trade did not work out. They wanted it to. I mean, the guys that they tried to get, they liked. It just didn't work out. The Nash deal worked out pretty nicely, actually. This deadline has to start to set the table for the future. And that future isn't next season. For where the roster and the organization is, they've got to make the moves, like where they're moving guys like Trocheck, for example. That's got to count. They got to make it count. A lot of comments. Again, I had a lot to talk about tonight. Who do you see that can step right into the... I don't know that anybody can, Peter. I mean, yeah, maybe Gavin McKenna. You know, again, some of these guys, I don't know. Mark says Lawrence or Verhoff, you know. But honestly, Peter, back to your point, like, that's okay. Like, go back to college. Get the player in your system. Figure it out later. They don't need to play immediately. Arguably, that's a problem when they play immediately. It has not worked out for the New York Rangers when they've done that. Tank, 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 baby. You know it. So waste 2 to 3 more years of Igor. PJ, what choice do they have? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They got old. They got old. They went for it. They missed. And now they're old. What are they going to do? There's no choice here. Hi, Barb. Yeah. Might even be more. I don't know that there's... What are they going to do? They can't make... There's no, like, tree that you can grow players on, you got to go get them. The way you get them is you suck and you get a high draft pick. What are your tradable assets? They're going to give you. I don't know. I mean, everybody says go. I mean, yeah, if you trade Fox, you'll get quite a bit back. But then you got to find one of those pieces might even be Adam Fox. You know, free agents are all signed already. Yep. Yeah. Hank, what's up, brother? Like 2029, maybe. Okay, this is where I bring up Panarin. Igor has what, 5 years left? No, he's gotten longer than that. Goalie's aged gracefully. We're gonna waste 2 or 3 years, so why pay Igor even though we can afford it? Trade him for more piece. But goalies don't get you the value because it's with a contract on top of it. At some point, and this is my bigger fear, Fox and Shesterkin might say, "Get me out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this." Then you're really up shit's creek, honestly, because you got nothing. I believe that. What good is Shesterkin 3 to 4 years from now? He's going to be great 3 to 4 years from now. Why wouldn't he be? He just, I don't even think is he 30 yet? He's 30, right? Like goalies age great. Bobrovsky's 39. It's fine. Joe, future is bleak. Well, that's why they got to fix it. That's why they need to be bad to help the future. That's the whole point. Okay. So I asked some of you, and you obliged. Ask me questions that I can show on the show. So I took some screenshots of those questions, and I will post them, and I will answer them. Where did I? Okay. Al Rastelli. I don't know if anyone has an answer to this, but when the Rangers finally won from Drury, would Messier even consider being the GM of the Rangers? Not even sure if he would consider a position, but I've been wanting this for a while. Just my thoughts. That's come up a lot. I don't know why though. What has Mark Messier led? What front office roles has he had that would qualify him to be a general manager? That keeps coming up, but I don't know that. Wayne Gretzky was a terrible head coach. Greatest player of all time. Terrible head coach. So I don't know that you can say because the guy was a great player that he can be a great general manager or even a coach for that matter. Like I don't see that. I would not want to see that personally. I know others feel differently. David Voorhees, why not just trade Shesterkin at this point? For what? For what? Why? What's the point? You're not going to get enough to make it worth your while. You're just not. Goalies don't generally bring in that kind of return. Brian O'Connor, why is Drury still here? Well, why shouldn't he be? Did he get rid of one of your favorite players and you're upset about it? I'll ask you that question. Mark Jacobs, don't care anyone says it's a rebuild, not a retool. So why do we have a coach who hates playing rookies and young kids? Well, who? Scott Morrow's got a huge leash on him. So does Gabe Perreault. If you're referring to Brennan Othmann, well, Brennan Othmann stinks. If you're referring to Brett Berard, well, Brett Berard stinks. So who else is he not playing? If it's guys that stink, well, SOL, you stink. That's why you're not there anymore. I don't see any, did I do this one already? Yeah, that's one I just did. Okay. John Marino, who in the front office actually thinks this rebuild, yes, I said, is going to fit within Sheshy's peak years? They've been injured a few times now, isn't getting any younger, even by some miracle. How many chances of the finals is he really going to have? Well, that depends on how quick they get to their rebuilding. You can expedite this by being really bad. The worse you are, the better things will be. It's kind of that simple. We need to suck. We need to root for the team to, and I know that you're not going to like that, but that's the reality of things. It's just how it is. Okay. Marty Guma. Hope we're not spelling right. Knowing for some time now that we have issues with developing players and poor scouting, why hasn't Drury made any moves to improve this team in that area? With all the high draft picks we've had 5-6 years ago, we haven't developed any of the players. With all this in mind, with our recent failures, do you feel comfortable having Drury and his team run the draft for us? Do you replace him and his team? So we touched on that. I do think, to a degree, the Chris Kreider worked out fine. Filipino, if not for head injuries, would have been developed just fine. Perot's playing. Like, I think there's again, is it their strength? I would not say it is their strength. The players that you focus the most on would be Lafreniere and Kakko. Everybody takes them. They just didn't work out. Kakko went somewhere else, hasn't worked out. So it might just be him. I do think they look at making some, if they're honest about themselves, then yeah, they need to look at why is Jed Ortmeyer still the director of player development. However, to be fair, he's been there pre-Drury. This is not a Drury hire, but Drury did keep him in the job. So I do think that you may see some changes there for sure. I would not rule that out by any means. Peter, how does the Hartford Wolfpack not have one NHL player on it? Well, Peter, that's because they haven't tried to do that. They've tried to win. So again, like, they've been trying to make the pro roster better to try to win. And that's why they've been trading second round picks and in some cases first round picks. And that's okay. Like, this is the cycle, right? Sports have cycles, peaks and valleys. We're here now. We're on the way down and about to bottom out. And then we make it up again, supposedly. Let's hope so. Dushan PA. Question. At this point, should they just tank? Yes. I don't need to read the rest of that question. Should they tank? Yes. The answer is yes. They should tank. I could not yet. Yes. Yes, they should tank. Eddie Willema. Aside from the Trocheck rumors, there's been some laughy Vancouver. If you were Drury, who would you really be willing to trade? Who would be off the table? Prefer prospect, established players. If you had the reins, what would be your ideal perfect moves and realistic ones to get them back on track? So I went into some of that detail. Again, I just don't think there's going to be a deal where they get something back for Lafreniere that makes sense to move Lafreniere. If they were up against the cap, sure. They're not, and they won't be. So, if anything, Lafreniere should get, frankly, a lot more high-level ice time because how many players do they still have? So, it's time to shake it off the pot. But no, I'm not going to give the player away. Why? What does that do for me? Doesn't do anything for me. Last question. Question time. Rags Joe, what's your hope for return on Trocheck? Hearing the rumors sound like Minnesota, Charlie Stroud was a good prospect in the deal. I want Danila Yurov. Am I going to get Danila Yurov? Probably not, but I want Danila Yurov. I would like Jiricek. I do agree with you. I think Stramel's going to be the name that most likely ends up here. I think Drury has a bit of an erection for him, so I could totally see that coming. But you need more. Like, you cannot get a bad return for him. That needs to be a big return. Bonus question. What's USA chance of winning gold? Do you beat a Sweden or a Canada team? Well, congrats to the ladies today, bringing home gold for the red, white, and blue. I do think that they beat Sweden, obviously, in the quarters. They should beat Slovakia relatively easily. Like, I think that Sweden was a tougher matchup than Slovakia was, so I think that's okay. It's going to set up, I think, US and Canada in the final. I think that's what we've all been looking for. Canada's really good. They're really good. I mean, if you were to combine these two teams, like, how many Canadians do you take before you get to an American? Do you believe in miracles? So thanks for watching. Like, follow, and share. We appreciate all the interactions and support. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for all of it. You know, the next part of this journey, as I said earlier, it's not going to be a lot of fun for a lot of you. I tell you that I feel the same. I feel that what they're about to go through is more fruitful than losing in the playoffs. I've always felt that way. I know you disagree, and that's okay. But this is not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be one summer away. This is not an add one winger, run it back. Window's closed. It closed because the core aged. It closed because they didn't push hard enough when it mattered most. Now, the only smart thing to do is lose properly. Lose with purpose. Lose for draft position. Lose for talent. Because finishing 18th gets you nothing, but finishing 30th, that might just get you a cornerstone player. The Rangers need alphas. They don't need middle six ceilings. They don't need sandpaper projects. They don't need grit for the sake of grit. They need talent. They need centers, but they need game breakers. And if that means 2 to 3 ugly seasons, fine. I would rather be bad on purpose than mediocre by accident. BlueTruth has never been about pom-poms. It's always been about reality. And the reality is this. They have a lot of work to do. They really do. I get no enjoyment out of telling you that, but I keep it as real as I can. Every third thought in my mind is about the team. That wasn't just talk for talk's sake. I'm obsessed with it. You don't know, like, this part's not gonna be fun. But this is what they have to do. What choice do they have? I hope that you'll continue to hang around with us. You know, we'll continue to bring you the news and the memes that I think are funny, that some people think are also funny, and the sarcasm that many of you have come to really enjoy, and people get mad at me, and I could not give a fuck less. That's how people are. Let's finish the comments here. Move Foxwell value aside, Joe. I cannot disagree with you more. I can't disagree with you more on that. Respectfully. Did we cover? Yes, we did. Oh, yes, we did. At length, Mark. Got a lot of comments telling me I know what I'm talking about. That is what it is. I can only bring the horse to water. I can't make them drink. It is scary. Yes. I'm telling you. Yeah. Yes. That's your concern. Is what if he just wants to go? Sell assets, get young and draft picks, 2-year plan, and make it 3. It's fine. Kurt, thank you, brother. Cheers to you as well. Always love seeing you on the show. Nice to see it's team wearing Ranger blue actually scoring and winning. You listen, I've always said that those jerseys are, we should get, the copyright somewhere is a Ranger jersey. Bastards. Happy 50th. And listen, we've now been the cycles on this show, PJ, you know? I mean, I know you keep wanting me to go to Borelli. I think it's a bad idea right now. I think they'd probably just laugh at me. Chris, nice work. Thank you. Misery loves company. We can start a company and make misery. Frustrated Incorporated. That's what we are. Anthony, great job. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Always. Thanks, bud. Well, hope my son sees a cup while he's wheeling me around the house. You know, it's so funny, dude. I was thinking about this. I said when my son was like, I just want the Rangers to be good again when he's like 6. So he can like come up the way. I mean, they won when I was 10. You know, like I have memories, which I remind my father of a lot. I remember them, I think, more than he does. But like, I remember very specifically in 1992, I was 8 years old. I was at my son's age now. And they were in the playoffs against Pittsburgh. I think it was before Game 6. And my parents had this just ugly, ugly ass orange chair in their living room. Like, whatever. But I'm sitting in it and I'm crying. And my dad comes home from work. He's working in Atlantic City at the time. He comes home and he's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, well, the Rangers are going to lose. And he said something pretty prescient. He said, yeah, they do that every year. Get used to it. Now, 2 years later, they won. But that seems to be more the exception than the norm. So again, guys, listen, thank you for taking the time. I this was a long one. I knew it was going to be a long one. I had so much to say. And again, I feel great getting it off my chest. I feel great having the conversation that we've had. We're going to have a lot more of them, and a lot of them are going to be just us kind of commiserating together, because this is the part of the cycle that sucks. It can end up being more fruitful, but you have to have a lot of thick skin to go through it. So when I go to games and I'm laughing at what they're doing wrong, I mean, that's just the way I'm going to cope with it. What am I going to do? Again, What else can they possibly do but just be bad? They're going to be bad anyway. Just be bad on purpose instead. What are you going to do? They went for it and they missed. Say living. So again, thank you all. Appreciate all of the kind words. We'll be obviously, as it gets closer to draft time, and there'll be a lot more fun. I mean, all right, they're fun for me. Are they going to be fun for you? Maybe not as much, because it's going to be a result of the team being terrible, but we'll see where things go. So again, thank you for the time tonight. Thank you for everything, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.